Hi guys, I'm Laura Vitale. On this episode of Laura in the Kitchen, we're making chicken marbella. I think I'm pronouncing it right. So this is a recipe that was really popular in the early 1980s. It was featured in a Silver Spoon cookbook, and it was sort of like a delicacy that everybody loved. And I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and we both have a love affair for food, and talking about old classic recipes. And she brought out her old cookbooks, and this recipe came to mind. I've made it once, delightful. I want to share it with you again. It is absolutely delicious. It's a perfect combination of like tartness and sweetness, and it's just absolutely phenomenal. Let me run you through the list of ingredients because it's not very much. You'll of course need your chicken, which I'll talk about in a minute, but you'll need good olive oil, some capers with their brine. You'll need some green olives. I like Spanish olives for this, but you can use whatever. I've got red wine vinegar, oregano, bay leaves, some pitted dried prunes, lots of garlic, lots of salt. You're also going to need brown sugar and some white wine. This is very simple. Now for the chicken, traditionally you'll use like whole chickens, a couple of whole chickens, or you can cut the chickens into 8 portions. I like to use about 5 pounds of drumsticks and thighs, bone in, skin on, just because it's easier to eat, they're easier to find, they're easier to maneuver, so that's just what I'm using. You could marinate this overnight. I don't think it's necessary. I think between 3 and 4 hours you get a really delicious flavor. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking some garlic. I don't know if I mentioned garlic in my list, but you definitely need some garlic. And you need to grate this so that it's basically like a paste, right? And I just do this right over top. Oh my goodness, right over top of a measuring cup. That way when I add my vinegar and my olive oil, it just makes it easier to mix and it coats the chicken better. If I were to go ahead and add the paste right to the chicken, it's just gonna take me longer to smoosh it around really good. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Get it all off of that. Great. Now at this point, all I'm going to mix here is the vinegar. Just because, like I said, it just makes it easier to pour over everything. And your olive oil. Good olive oil. Give that a mixaroo. Bring your chicken over. Pour that right in, along with your capers. Please make sure your capers have got some brine in there because that really is important. Your olives, you can use any green olive, like you can use a Cerignola, you can use a Castelvetrano. I really like, they're called Spanish olives, but they're really just pimento stuffed olives. They're really briny and salty. Your oregano, a good amount of salt because there's a lot of chicken to season. Lots of black pepper. And then your prunes. Sounds odd, right? But the prunes just get caramelized and delicious, and they're phenomenal in here. I tell you, it's really unexpected, but it makes such a world of a difference. So add those in. Pitted, of course. I also have here a small container, I'm sorry, a smaller baking dish. And the reason is, you know me, if you have been watching me for a while and you watch me make marinades and marinate anything, you know I always tell you, place your mixture in a container, in a bowl, in a pan that's snug enough to hold everything in without the marinade sort of swimming away from the chicken. Clean hands. And now you're just gonna mix everything together. You really want to make sure that your chicken's coated well. And now I'm just going to add my chicken in here. I'm not going to roast it in here actually, but I want to keep it in something really snug for while it marinates, you know? So I'm just going to keep it in here like so. Try to put it in there as tight as possible. And then we're going to pour the marinade all over it, and it's basically going to be submerged, right? This is so fantastic, you would not believe it. It's one of the most delicious chicken dishes of all times, and when you make it once, you'll understand why it is so popular, or it was so popular, and why it's just making a comeback. I know Ina Garten made this. I think Ina Garten was the one that kind of resurrected it. Here we go, and now you're gonna pour this gorgeous mixture all over, and I just kind of hide the prunes in there so that they can stay somewhat submerged in any liquid. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands really well. I'm gonna cover this gorgeous mixture, which you would not believe the smell, with some plastic wrap, but I'm gonna stick it in the fridge for about probably 4 or 5 hours, depending on how I feel, depending on how early or late I wanna eat dinner. It's a great thing about being the boss of your kitchen and being the boss of when you feed your family. So I'm just gonna go do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like before we pop it in the oven. My chicken was marinating pretty much all day. I've got my oven preheated to 375. I've got some dry white wine that I am just drizzling around the pan, around the chicken. That smells so phenomenal. Layer your baking sheet with some aluminum foil because that way any sugar, because we're going to top this with brown sugar. I know it sounds crazy, but it's delightful. It caramelizes on the baking sheet. I'm sorry, on the aluminum foil and not your baking sheet. Sprinkle a little bit of light brown sugar directly over your chicken. This just helps give the most beautiful caramelization, and oh, it's just so good. So good. Sprinkle that right on top. 375, 45 minutes to an hour. Every 15 minutes you're going to come in and baste it with its own juices. It's going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it. It's a lot of meat. My chicken looks beautiful, but let me tell you what I did. Right around the 35-minute mark, I cranked the heat up to 425 and let it go for another half an hour. It took about an hour total, and it's beautiful. I took it out. I used my turkey baster to get all the juices out as much as I could anyway. Placed them in a saucepan to condense them down a little bit. My mouth is watering. And it really just intensifies the flavor, and it just becomes absolutely phenomenal. This does make a lot of juice, so you probably don't need it all, but trust me when I tell you, it smells insanely divine in here. Put everything on a huge platter. Get yourself some fresh parsley. You can also do a little fresh oregano if you want to, just to echo the dried oregano in the marinade. And I mean, look at that. I mean, this chicken's literally falling apart. It's falling off the bone for sure. I want to get it all out of here. Those prunes have just soaked up all that goodness. Look at that. They are just plump and delicious and sweet and sticky and just absolutely wonderful. Now, you have to keep in mind, you're supposed to serve this over some starch. I'm going to do rice. Mashed potatoes is also great. That's why there's so much juice and you want it. Trust me. It is absolutely divine. And like I said, I'm going to put on a big pot of rice. And that is perfection. A little green. And it smells insane. I have a knife here, so I'm going to go into the thigh right there. Oh, it's going to fall right off. Yeah, that's what I thought. Going to fall right off the bone. It smells so good. It's sweet. It's briny. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. The prunes melt in your mouth are probably the best part of this, if I had to guess. They get caramelly sweet and just they soak up that vinegar, they soak up that flavor. 10 out of 10. Phenomenal. I'm gonna go serve these, get some rice going. Phenomenal. If you notice I've changed my shirt, you're the real MVP. I got hot. Go to laurenkitchen.com for the written recipe. Hoping you enjoy spending time with me. See you soon, bud.